Hello everyone. There comes a moment in life when someone says or does something that cuts deep. Not because it's true, but because it's meant to provoke, humiliate, or belittle you. And in that moment, the natural instinct is to react, to defend yourself, to shout back, to make them feel what they made you feel. But that's where true strength is tested, not in how loudly you roar back, but in how silently you walk away. Staying quiet after disrespect is not an act of submission. It's a declaration of power. It means you've recognized something essential. Not every insult deserves your energy, not every person deserves your explanation, and not every situation needs your voice. When someone disrespects you, it reveals their character, not you. They show you the cracks in their own self-esteem, the chaos they carry, the battles they're losing within. It's never really about you. It's about their projection, their ego, their need to feel taller by making you feel small. And when you stay quiet, you rob them of what they crave most. You deny them the satisfaction of your reaction. You hold on to your dignity, your peace, and your power. You show that you do not need to shout to be heard or fight to prove your worth. Silence in moments of disrespect becomes your armor. It protects your focus, your energy, your soul. It keeps you on your path without being detoured by petty people or temporary pain. You see, people who are going somewhere in life don't stop to throw stones at every barking dog. They keep walking because they know what's ahead is more important than what's behind. Your destiny, your growth, your vision, it all demands silence in moments where noise offers nothing but chaos. Let your silence speak volumes. Let it echo in the minds of those who tried to bring you down. Let it say, I don't need to argue with anyone who's already beneath the level I've risen from. And most importantly, let your silence give birth to success so loud they'll wish they treated you better. Stay quiet. Not because you're weak, but because you're growing, glowing, and going somewhere they can't. We live in a world that often confuses loudness with strength and silence with surrender. People expect you to clap back, defend yourself, raise your voice, and stand your ground with noise. But the truth is, real power isn't loud, it's composed, calm, and deeply rooted in self-awareness. When you choose silence after being disrespected, people might misinterpret it. They might call it cowardice. They might say you're too soft, too passive, or too scared. But let them talk. Because silence doesn't mean you don't feel the sting. It means you refuse to bleed in front of those who enjoy your pain. Silence is restraint. It's the ability to hold yourself together when everything inside you wants to scream. It's the quiet voice that says, this is not worth my energy. It is wisdom choosing peace over pointless arguments, dignity over drama, and purpose over pettiness. Silence also reveals a different kind of intelligence, the intelligence of emotional discipline. Anyone can shout, anyone can snap back. But it takes a wise person to evaluate the situation and say, my peace is too valuable to trade for temporary satisfaction. People who react instantly may feel good in the moment, but they often regret it later. Words spoken in anger create damage that can't be undone. Reactions triggered by disrespect often pull you down to the same low level as the one who disrespected you. But when you stay silent, you rise, you observe, you process, you learn. Silence gives you control over the outcome. It leaves room for clarity. It keeps your reputation intact and your emotions in check. And most of all, it keeps your power in your hands, not scattered in arguments that go nowhere. So the next time you feel disrespected and the urge to react bubbles up, remember, silence isn't weakness. It's the highest form of wisdom. A quiet mind is stronger than a loud mouth, and a composed heart outlasts every chaos thrown. Every time you respond to someone, especially in moments of conflict or disrespect, you're not just speaking, you're teaching. You're setting a standard. You're drawing an invisible line that tells others, This is how I allow myself to be treated. Whether you realize it or not, your reaction becomes a silent lesson to the people around you. When someone disrespects you and you immediately react, whether with anger, defensiveness, or emotional outburst, you're showing them that your peace is easily disturbed, that your emotions can be manipulated, and that their words or actions have power over you. It tells them, if I want to get a reaction, I know exactly how to pull their strings. But when you respond with calm, or better yet, with silence, you teach something entirely different. You teach that your self-worth is not on trial. You teach that you are not available for emotional games. You teach that their attempts to provoke you will fail, not because you didn't notice the disrespect, but because you know how to rise above it. Reactions are not always about defending yourself. They are about shaping the environment around you. People will test you. They will push boundaries, sometimes intentionally, sometimes out of habit. Your response, especially in difficult moments, becomes the blueprint for how they interact with you moving forward. If someone sees that their disrespect causes you to argue, to break down, to lose control, they will either repeat that behavior or use it as leverage. But if they see that their disrespect is met with silence, confidence, or no access to your energy at all, they are forced to reconsider their approach or remove themselves entirely. Boundaries are not always spoken. Sometimes your greatest boundary is how you behave when someone crosses a line. And every time you respond from a place of strength, composure, and dignity, you are silently raising the bar for how you expect and demand to be treated. Think about it like your reaction is your signature. Are you signing off on mistreatment, or are you declaring that your energy, your presence, and your peace are non-negotiable? The choice is always yours. And the way you choose to react writes the unspoken rules for how the world interacts with. When someone disrespects you, belittles you, mocks you, ignores your value, it's easy to take it personally. It feels like an attack on your identity, on your worth, on your dignity. But here's a truth that can shift everything. Disrespect is a reflection of the one who gives it, not the one who receives it. Think about it. People who are grounded, confident, emotionally secure, and kind-hearted don't go around tearing others down. They don't need to prove their power through humiliation. They don't feed their ego by dimming someone else's light. Disrespect is often a symptom of deeper issues: jealousy, insecurity, fear, pain, or even self-hatred. Sometimes the person who disrespects you isn't actually responding to you. They're reacting to their own internal chaos. You just happen to be the nearest target. Their tone, their attitude, their bitterness, it's all rooted in their own story, their own emotional baggage. You're not the cause. You're just a trigger. Understanding this doesn't make the disrespect hurt any less, but it does help you carry it differently. It helps you see it for what it really is. A mirror showing their truth, not a window into yours. When you internalize disrespect, you allow it to distort your self-image. You start to question your worth, your voice, your place. But once you realize that their behavior is about them, not you, you begin to free yourself. You start to detach your self-esteem from other people's projection. A person who cannot control their tongue, who cannot manage their emotions, who chooses cruelty over kindness, says far more about their emotional maturity than they ever say about your value. Their disrespect is not your responsibility to fix. It's not your burden to carry. And it's certainly not your truth to accept. When you learn to see disrespect as a window into someone's inner battles, you stop absorbing it, you observe it. You don't take it in, you step back and recognize it for what it is. A loud cry from someone who hasn't yet learned how to love themselves, let alone respect others. And when you reach that level of clarity, you no longer feel the need to prove yourself to people who don't even know how to honor their own decency. There's something profoundly powerful about stillness in a world that thrives on noise. In moments of chaos, Disrespect and emotional turbulence, your ability to stay quiet, isn't just about holding your tongue, it's about elevating your mind. It's about stepping out of the storm instead of getting caught in it. When someone disrespects you, they're not just attacking with words, they're inviting you into a space of disorder, ego, and emotional confusion. They want you to react, they want you to defend, to argue, to match their energy. But when you stay quiet, you decline that invitation. You choose peace over performance. You decide that your energy is not available for battles that don't lead to growth. Silence is often mistaken for indifference, but in truth it is a declaration. I will not descend to your level. I will not be dragged into your chaos. And in doing so, you position yourself above the emotional noise that others try to pull you into. Rising above the chaos doesn't mean you didn't feel disrespected. It doesn't mean you didn't notice the jab or the insult. It means you saw it clearly and decided it wasn't worth your reaction. You chose not to let it poison your spirit or pull you away from your purpose. There is a maturity in that silence, a quiet kind of grace, a stillness that says, I am grounded in who I am, and I don't need to respond to every disturbance around me, because not every battle deserves your presence. Not every insult requires your attention, and not every person is worth losing your inner peace over. When you remain silent in the face of chaos, you don't lose. You win in the most profound way. You show that you have mastered yourself, your emotions, your impulses, your pride. That self-mastery builds character. It sets you apart. It sends a message louder than any argument ever could, that you are too focused, too evolved, too centered to be pulled into emotional warfare by those still struggling to find themselves. And while others exhaust themselves in drama, trying to prove who's right or who's stronger, you rise quietly, steadily, and with dignity intact. Your energy is your most precious currency. Every word you speak, every emotion you invest, every thought you entertain, it all costs you something. And the truth is, most people spend their energy too freely, especially when it comes to defending themselves against those who aren't even worthy of a conversation. You have to understand that not every mind is ready to receive the truth, not every heart is open to understanding, and not every soul is mature enough to respect your value. When you engage with people who are committed to misunderstanding you, you end up pouring your energy into a bottomless pit, and no matter how much you give, it will never be enough. People with small minds thrive on gossip, negativity, ego-driven competition, and emotional manipulation. They use disrespect as a tool to pull others down to their level. But you weren't built to live small. You weren't created to shrink into arguments that steal your focus, your joy, and your peace. So why give them access to your energy? Think about how much your energy is worth. It fuels your dreams, your relationships, your growth, your healing. It takes strength to build, to rise, to evolve. And when you waste that sacred force on meaningless conflict or immature minds, you delay your progress and sabotage your inner peace. It's not arrogance to walk away from shallow conversations. It's not pride to protect your space. It's wisdom. Because when you truly value yourself, you don't engage in battles that cost you more than they're worth. You don't let small-minded people rent space in your mind or drain your emotional reserves. Some people want to drag you into their storms simply because they're uncomfortable with your calm. They poke, they push all because your presence reminds them of what they haven't yet become. But don't fall for it. Don't let them set the emotional temperature of your day. Be selective with your energy. Channel it into places that feed you, not drain you. Pour it into people who see your worth, not those who try to challenge it. Use it to build a life that reflects your values, your peace, and your vision, not to explain yourself to minds too small to understand the depth of your silence. Your energy is expensive. Spend it like it matters, because true self-respect doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need to scream, shout, or put on a performance to be seen. It lives quietly within you, like an unshakable foundation that supports every step you take. It's not about proving anything to others. It's about proving everything to yourself. When someone disrespects you, the loudest thing you can do is often say nothing, because silence, when rooted in self-respect, carries a weight that noise never can. It says, I know my value, and I don't need your validation. It says, your opinion of me doesn't shape my reality. That kind of quiet confidence is rare and deeply powerful. People often mistake loudness for strength. They think raising your voice, retaliating, or putting someone in their place is how you defend your worth. But real strength isn't reactive, it's reflective. Real self-respect allows you to walk away not because you're weak, but because you refuse to lower yourself to a level that doesn't match who you are. Self-respect shows up in boundaries, in what you no longer tolerate, in what you choose to ignore. It shows up in the quiet decision to protect your peace rather than prove your point. And when you live with that kind of self-respect, you stop engaging in the petty wars that people with wounded egos try to start. You realize you don't need to raise your voice to raise your standards. You don't need to win arguments to walk in confidence. You don't need to demand respect from people who don't even respect themselves. Because self-respect is an inside job, and once it's secure, no one on the outside can take it from you. There is dignity in silence. There is elegance in restraint. There is undeniable power in the ability to remain unshaken, even when others try to rattle you. That kind of power doesn't come from pride. It comes from knowing exactly who you are, what you deserve, and how little you're willing to compromise to keep someone else comfortable. So remember, self-respect isn't about being louder than the disrespect. So grounded that the noise outside doesn't reach the peace. In the heat of being disrespected, it's tempting to want revenge, to say something sharp, to expose someone's flaws, to humiliate them the way they try to humiliate you. The desire for revenge is human. It feels like a way to restore balance, to reclaim your dignity. But here's the truth. Revenge doesn't heal. It only continues the cycle of pain. Peace, the kind of peace that lets you sleep at night and hold your head high, doesn't come from hurting someone back. It comes from having the strength to rise above the need to retaliate. That strength is called self-control, and it's one of the rarest forms of power a person can possess. Self-control isn't weakness. It's the refusal to let someone else dictate your behavior. It's the realization that when you allow someone's words or actions to determine your response, you hand them control of your emotions. And nothing is more dangerous than giving someone who disrespects you power over your inner world. When you act out of revenge, you step into their chaos. You match their low energy. You become a reflection of the very behavior that hurt you. But when you choose restraint, when you choose silence, when you walk away, you don't just protect your peace, you elevate your character. Revenge may give temporary satisfaction, but it always comes at a cost. Your dignity, your clarity, your focus. On the other hand, self-control may feel hard in the moment, but it gives you a long-lasting reward. Peace that can't be shaken by external disrespect. And peace is not just the absence of conflict. It's the presence of inner alignment. It's knowing that you didn't let someone else's immaturity pull you off course. It's standing firm in your values, even when the easy thing would be to strike back. Revenge is emotional. Self-control is intentional. One is fueled by ego, the other by wisdom. One burns bridges, the other builds character. You can't control how others treat you, but you can always control how you respond. And in that response lies your freedom, your strength, and your peace. One of the greatest forms of wisdom is knowing when to respond and when to simply walk away. It's easy to think that every insult requires a comeback, that every accusation must be answered, that every confrontation demands your presence. But the truth is, your presence is powerful, and it shouldn't be wasted where it isn't valued. In life, you will encounter people who provoke you not to understand you, but to distract you. They don't want clarity, they want control. They don't want conversation, they want conflict. And the more you try to explain, to defend, or to correct them, the more power you unknowingly give them over your energy. But when you choose not to respond, when you choose absence over engagement, you reclaim that power. You send a silent but strong message. My time, my peace, and my presence are not freely available to chaos. Not every insult is worth a rebuttal. Not every false story deserves a correction. Not every person is worthy of your attention. Some situations are meant to be left unanswered. Not because you're afraid, not because you're weak, but because you're wise enough to know that responding would lower you to a level you've outgrown. Walking away is not defeat, it is maturity. It is recognizing that some people survive off of your reactions, that your attention is their fuel, and by refusing to engage you cut off the oxygen to their fire. You starve the drama, you end the cycle. Your absence creates a silence that speaks louder than any words ever could. It creates space for healing, for reflection, for growth. And sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to disappear from the places where your respect isn't reciprocated and your value isn't seen. In a world that constantly tells you to react, to respond, to clap back, choosing absence is revolutionary. It's a declaration of inner stability, of self-worth, of focus. You're not running, you're realigning, you're not avoiding, you're evolving. So remember, not everything deserves your voice. Some things are best answered by your silence, but others are best answered by your complete and permanent absence. In a world that often equates silence with submission, people forget the quiet strength that exists in restraint. We're conditioned to believe that speaking out, clapping back, or defending ourselves immediately is a sign of strength. But true emotional intelligence knows better. It knows that silence, when chosen consciously, is not weakness. It's strategy, maturity, and wisdom in motion. Silence isn't about being passive, it's about being selective. It's the understanding that your words have weight, and when you choose not to use them, it's not because you can't, but because you know when it's not worth it. That's emotional discipline. Think about it. Anyone can lash out when they're angry, insulted, or hurt. That doesn't take strength. That takes impulse. But to pause, to reflect, to hold your tongue when your pride wants to scream, that takes control. That takes a deep awareness of your emotional landscape. It takes insight to ask yourself, will this serve me? Will this protect my peace? Will this elevate the situation or just drag me into unnecessary noise? Emotional intelligence is about responding rather than reacting. It's about knowing the difference between what needs your voice and what needs your silence. And more often than not, disrespect doesn't need a response. It needs to be met with indifference. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise enough to conserve your energy for the battles that actually matter. Silence is not an absence of power. It's often its purest form. Because when you stay silent, you remain in control. You don't give the other person the satisfaction of knowing they've provoked you. You don't allow them to shape the narrative. You hold your dignity intact while they reveal more about themselves with every word they speak. The emotionally intelligent understand that not every situation deserves emotional investment. They know how to stay centered in storms. They know that silence can disarm, diffuse, and de-escalate far more effectively than retaliation ever could. Your silence can say, I see your behavior, but I refuse to reflect it. It can say, I choose peace over pride, wisdom over war, and most importantly, it says, I am not ruled by what happens around me. I am guided by what lives within me. So the next time someone disrespects you, pauses your words with their words, tries to provoke your peace, or attempts to drag you into a space you no longer belong, remember this. You are not required to attend every argument you're invited to. You are not obligated to shrink yourself just to be heard by those who refuse to listen. And you are never weak for choosing silence over conflict or peace over pride. Staying quiet after disrespect isn't surrender. It's strength. It's saying, I know who I am. I know what I carry. And I don't need to shout to prove it. Because dignity doesn't argue, character doesn't compete, and self-respect doesn't chase approval. Let them speak. Let them assume. Let them play in the noise. You stay silent. You stay focused. You stay powerful. And that's how you win, without ever needing to say a word.